I don't know, I was looking it up and it says like it's supposed to rain by Saturday evening or something, like midnight.
So maybe it'll end in the morning.
And in the morning, so.
No, that's wrong. It's not gonna rain anymore.
Not at all.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
The trailer.
Oh, I think it was, you were coming to that.
No, he doesn't want to. That's pretty important. though.
Where is that? It's on Saturday,
Sunday,
Sunday?
1 to 4, they're playing on the lawn
Yeah.
in the front of the.
Oh.
bed and breakfast. It's so great.
And are they-
Every basket.
Are they jazz or? Oh, they're brass.
They're a horn band, so it's all like Chicago or the Fire or Powder.
Well, that's what I mean, like what kind of music do they play?
Thunder.
Yeah, right up my alley.
Yeah, really. Have a drink. Outside on the
That's beautiful.
lawn.
You.
Yeah.
It does, because it's got two little eyes and then the nose in the middle.
Yeah. Can you see it from your shirt?
The owl?
That looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got eyes on
I
the
actually
side.
chuckled when I said it, because I thought the same thing when I looked.
It does have it on the back too. Yeah. That's the.
Ready? All right. Call the regular Board of Finance meeting to order September 19th, 7 PM Town Hall Meeting Room. Eric, roll call to order. Item number one.
All members present.
Item number two, public forum. Thank you all for coming. I think this is the most we've had a Board of Finance meeting in a long time. Anyone wishing to speak?
Hello, my name is Jennifer Gothier. I'm one of the registrars of voters for the town of Bridgewater. I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but on June 27th, the first selectman drafted and brought to vote to the board of selectmen a draft pay policy for the registrar of voters, requiring us to punch in and punch out using a time clock, restricting the number of hours that we can work outside the office, in the office, and our comings and goings, and estimating an hourly pay rate of $7 per hour, to be paid per hour, instead of by monthly stipend like it always has been. This policy was not drafted with any input from the public, unbeknownst to either registrar, not discussed with any other elected official, without the Board of Finance's input, and without any town attorney input. No other elected official is subject to this policy. The draft policy was brought to the board of selectmen June 27th. A letter was drafted from the first election June 30th. It was in my mailbox, not personally given to me July 2nd. I've attended every board of selectmen meeting since that time, asking for the policy to be reviewed. One of the big items it does not include is we get paid by the hour, by the number of hours we punch in. What happens when we exceed the number of hours that are allotted in our budget? That becomes an overtime issue and becomes an issue for the Board of Finance. My requests for information have been denied. I have not gotten anywhere with the first selectman, and I have not been paid since July. So I am still owed July stipend, August stipend, and the first selectman is withholding legitimate mileage reimbursements for meetings that I had with the Secretary of State's office regarding issues within our registrar's office in order to protect our elections and our voters. I'm here to ask you tonight, as the budget making authority for the town, not the first selectman, to compel the first selectman to release those funds as I am voting. Okay.
Anyone have any questions, comments?
Can we get some more information on this? What's going on here?
I have all kinds of.
Oh, it's not-
You just stated what you stated, but I need to know what's going on with the board of selectmen. Why aren't they paying what they're supposed to be paying?
I don't believe it's in our purview to set policy for
And I have asked.
town
the
hall
first-
team members.
I have asked the first selectman for information on how the dollar per hour was derived, where it came from, how she can set the policy on her own without your input, considering the budget has already been set, approved by you and set to the voters. I'd be happy to discuss a policy going forward, but I think that it's unfair to stop paying someone because they don't like the way that I manage my job. And that's really what it boils down to. It's a personnel issue, but I am not an employee for the town, and the board of selectmen should have no purview to keep my pay, considering that I had budgeted for that amount for my family, and now it has created a hardship. I have filed a case with the Department of Labor along with the Secretary of State's office, but because I'm an elected official, just like the first selectman, there's very little they can do because I'm not an employee. So I am stuck between the first selectman with a stance that we voted the policy in, so you have to punch in and punch out, you get paid $17 per hour. But the fact of the matter is, I work all day sometimes for telephone calls, emails, reports, all kinds of things. So it would be very difficult and inefficient for me to log every telephone call or to come to the town hall to punch in and out when everybody knows that I work 8:30 to 4:30 and sometimes in Hartford. There is no way for me to punch in and out, and the first selectman knows this. So I think it's a policy, it's discriminatory, and it has created, like I said, a hardship for my family. And the first selectman refuses to answer any questions. I have submitted FOI requests, they have not been answered.
So, Mr. Chairman, where is our responsibility on this?
Well, it sounds like it's a personnel issue to me, to some degree, my opinion. Like I said, we don't get into policy making. We have the authority to carry out the fiduciary responsibilities of the town as it relates to the budget. That's my take on it.
I agree, but I also know that we expect that our bills will be paid in a timely fashion, and this is like a bill. And so, like, to understand why it's being withheld, just like if we had a creditor come here and say, I haven't been paid in 3 months, I've shipped my product, why aren't you paying me?
Agreed. Totally agree with that.
I'm just worried about the responsibility as well. If this becomes something in the law, where does the Board of Finance come into this part where we're supposed to be watching what's being paid and what's not being paid? That's my worry. I don't exactly know where we are here, but I'm concerned about what our responsibility is to make sure that the bills are paid to who they're supposed to be paid for.
Was there a previous policy for, Eric, do you know? Was there a previous policy for elected officials that were paid on a quote unquote stipend?
No,
No policy.
not written policy, no.
Are other elected officials currently paid on a stipend basis? Or are they paid on an hourly basis?
They're all paid on a salary basis.
This position is different from all of us.
It's not a full-time position. Most of the other elected officials. are full-time.
Are the part-time positions paid the same or are they different?
They're all salaried. All the elected officials are salaried.
Is she the only one that's getting paid this way?
Yes, well, the other registrar.
Both registrars.
Just so the two registers are the only ones that get paid by whenever the selectman wants to pay.
No,
Okay.
I'm not gonna sit here and discuss this in an open forum.
Why I'm here to discuss it. You have a problem with
No,
this?
and I agree with Eric, because since the complaint has been filed, it's now a legal matter. I'm sure you're consulting with your attorney.
They're not, and they're not talking to me,
Um,
and their attorney will not return a phone call.
But, but I'd like to ask Mr. Chairman if we could insist that it be put on the agenda for next month, and that we get an interim report in 2 weeks as far as what steps the finance department and the board of selectmen are taking to correct the payments in a timely manner.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Eric, if you can put together some documentation for us so we can better understand.
We need a motion for that, Eric.
I don't think so.
Mr. Chairman, I have just a question and a comment. The treasurer is an elected position. Is that full-time?
No.
No, that's part-time as well.
Is that stipend?
That's the
or is
only
that,
other part-time.
is that stipend or is that hourly?
That's a stipend.
Okay.
And is it
Weekly.
treasurer
So
being paid?
Yeah.
Weekly?
Yeah.
Does the treasurer need to, punch in and punch out?
So my comment is this. I agree with Dan. As much as I think we may want to intervene or assist, I think that there are certain limitations to our authority on what we can do or how we can go about doing things. And there are certain things that we just aren't able to be involved in. However, having said that, I would really hate to see, and not knowing what the circumstances are, I've heard, you know, Jen's side. My personal opinion is I don't need to hear the other side, because I don't believe that it's the responsibility of the purview of the Board of Finance to hold a tribunal, you know, so to speak. However, my last comment would be, I really hope that there is not any merit to this, because I would hate to see for this town to be in another position like it was a number of times over the years, where it has cost us significantly more money when whatever was going on could have been dealt with at a significantly lower level.
I agree with that. I've seen in the past.
And that's my only comment.
100% agree. So I guess we'll get some documentation so we can better understand what our purview in this may or may not even be for the next regularly scheduled meeting.
So in the meantime, I don't get paid at all, so I'm supposed to run a November municipal election with no pay.
Unfortunately, our hands are,
But I was
Our
elected to
time.
run, those elections. So you're telling me that I have to go for months and months without pay because the selectman doesn't agree with the way I manage my office. That's what it boils down to. So this is my last step before I have to file a lawsuit, because it's lost wages, discrimination. This is the problem. I'm coming to you as my last stop. Perhaps you could allow her to pay the ones that are outstanding and move forward. And if you agree that I should be doing this, or all elected officials should be doing this, then perhaps we start at that. But I think it's incorrect and wrong to ask me to continue to do a job. Know that I'm not getting paid for it.
I think Jennifer, I think it's pretty much agreed that we don't have a power to make the selectmen pay, but we also know the past, and we don't want something like this to cost the town any kind of money if it comes to this. And I'm hoping that the Board of Selectmen understands that we don't want to see anything will make the town liable for problems. So like I said, I think I agree with the rest of the board. We don't have, all we can do is say, let's work it out before we get lawyers involved.
we do have the fiduciary obligation, however, and the authority to tell the Board of Selectmen that if they're taking actions that that are pushing the town into a lawsuit, which will cost the taxpayers money, that they should find a way to resolve this matter as soon as possible so that we don't have a lawsuit that we have to pay damages on. Because everybody loses then. Every taxpayer shoulders a part of that expense, and that's just not fair to our fellow taxpayers. So this needs to be resolved.
And Griswold has seen this before. Well, I'm not saying same situation, but expensive lawyer bills that we don't want to see again.
Yeah, I just think it's a fine line between our responsibility to the taxpayers as far as the budget's concerned and tiptoeing that fine line with potential personnel matters that we have no responsibility over. I'd like to better understand the reasoning behind potentially not compensating someone for time worked. That's all I'm saying. Can't make a ruling on it tonight. I wouldn't be in favor of making a ruling on any of that tonight without more information.
I understand. If you need anything from me, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment?
Do I need to introduce myself?
Naming and
Terry Caluga, 113 Latham Drive. I came tonight after hearing a little bit of this information at another meeting that I had attended and felt strongly that while I don't sit on a board as a taxpayer in this community and having voted in the last election, this is not about Jen or any other particular person within that seat. It is an elected official that the town has voted on. Everyone else in our community is being paid one way, except this particular department. Considering that it was a draft and not voted on by the board and written in as a new ordinance, is my understanding. I think we are liable as a community to be on a hot seat pretty darn quick. And I agree with all of you. We've been in this situation before. And as the Board of Finance overseeing the budget that was passed by community members, if I'm not mistaken, the line item says the registrar's office earns X amount of dollars. Can I ask that question? Am I correct? The budget line item states that we elected this official, they are to be paid X amount of dollars. As long as that person's showing up for work, and especially with an election coming up, how we can withhold that pay is unconscionable to me. I can't believe as a town, we're allowing this to happen. I don't care who the first selectman is. I know who we voted for. I know what our community stands for. That is nonsense. And while you may not be able to make a decision tonight because you feel as though you need to address an attorney, I respect that wholeheartedly. I hope it gets resolved a whole lot quicker than 2 weeks. Because if we can do this to one person, how many other people and elected officials are we going to do this to? It's not a personnel matter. She is not an employee of the town hall. She is an elected official in our town. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Terry. Anyone else wishing to speak?
With Lori Sorter, Ashland Street, 67 Ashland Street. I'm on that same vein with Jen and Terry. My comments are that I attended the Board of Selectmen meeting when the draft policy was presented. There were 2 selectmen that voted to approve the draft. From that point on, it was never made into an official policy that I'm aware of. So right after the draft policy was approved, then it went into effect and she no longer got paid. I do know that Jennifer, in speaking with her, has gone to the Department of Labor, has gone to the Secretary of State's office, and she's between a rock and a hard place because those agencies work with, or Department of Labor works with employees. They say, we're not an employee, we can't help. Secretary of State's office says, You have to go by what your town governs, what their ordinances are, what their, so she is between a rock and a hard place and coming to every entity that she can possibly think of to get paid. And I hate to see the last resort, you know, having to put it off. And her only other recourse is to go legal.
Mr. Chairman, what's, this draft policy? I think I missed that. What-
It is a draft policy that the board of that, the first selectman, proposed at a selectmen's meeting, Board of Selectmen's meeting. And they passed that draft policy. It was a policy to, how can I say it, to, have the registrars of voters punch in with a time clock. There was,
It's a new policy, are you saying?
it was a new draft policy,
It's a new draft policy.
yes. And again, 2 selectmen voted to
That should be
approve the
given,
draft.
I'm sorry, that should be given point of order to the chairman. And you need to ask the chairman if he will accept it first.
Will you accept a copy of the draft policy?
Yes, I will.
So I think you'll discover that, you know, in this inquiry that you're looking for information. But I am of the same vein as Terry, that we the voters, we elected Jennifer as our registrar of voters. We elected her with the understanding that she was going to be paid the stipend that we approved in the budget referendum. And I think to hold it off, for whatever reason, it's just, it's not the right thing to do.
All right. Well, I'll pass this down so everyone can take a quick peek at it, but Eric, if you could include that. Is it still a draft policy or has it been passed as a policy? Do we not?
I'd have to refer to those first selectmen.
It's a policy. It's been passed as a policy.
It was passed as a draft. It never came back.
So but just include that with the documentation to the Board of Finance.
May I ask one other question, and I don't know if this is allowed, but I'd like to know, if the first selectman, says that it's a policy, when that was approved as a policy, other than the draft.
It was approved as a policy that night. It was a draft for approval as a policy. It was approved that night. You watched it.
You still have the tapes from that meeting?
I'm sure the town clerk's office.
Could I get a section typed out? Exactly what the motion was and what the discussion was.
Yeah, if you could send that to all the board.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to perhaps have us entertain a request for a legal opinion on what authority and purview we have when it comes to elected officials, payment of elected officials as the budgetary authority when we draft a budget and it's ratified by the legislative body, which obviously the townspeople. I think that might be a prudent first step to get a legal opinion on what, if in any authority we have when it comes to, obviously, we know with employees, we don't have anything.
No.
Does it differ with elected officials? Do we have the ability to compel the selectmen to have to pay the elected officials, or are we not involved because we don't have that ability? I think it might be a prudent first step.
No, I was thinking along those same lines, where do you start drawing the line with elected officials and how they're compensated? What if we tell Eric not to pay the first selectman? I mean, how,
Right, I mean,
so I think we probably should get a legal, we need a legal opinion.
Tell us what our role is and what, whether this is truly a a finalized approved policy or whether it was approved as a draft. And therefore, it needs to take another step in order to become
Right.
the policy.
Having said that, I think we probably may need more verbiage in there about all elected officials that are not
Right.
salaried positions, not just,
Yeah, since we approve these budget line items,
Right.
we approve these salaries and then they don't get paid. We have to have some sort of understanding about how that happens.
correct. So,
Eric, I know you, one seven
Make a
half,
motion
we didn't
for
want
that
to
to-
sort of like a personnel manager.
I think
I think
so. I think so.
They want to make a motion so that way if it doesn't.
Experience with before, is this something that you're talking to the town attorney about?
Yeah, we've had conversations with the town attorney.
Mr. Chairman, since there have been conversations with the town attorney, perhaps it might make sense for us to make a motion at the end of this meeting for an executive session, so that we can receive whatever information that the finance director and the first selectman are willing to provide to us.
Well, you can't go into
No.
executive session tonight.
Can't do it tonight.
It has to be on the agenda, okay.
With all due respect, Chairman, I have a copy of the regular meeting minutes of 6/27 to 2023 from the Board of Selectmen's meeting with the pertinent and relevant information highlighted. May I submit that to you now, please?
I think for now, I think we need to proceed with getting our legal opinion, as Scott has suggested, before we go down this rabbit's hole. I mean, I can sympathize with where you're coming from, but I think we as a Board of Finance are starting to get on a slippery slope here with this one, in my opinion. Doesn't sound like there's much comfort in talking about this in public from the other side, so I think it'd be best for all parties involved for us to get more information and some legal guidance on this issue.
So you want me to make a motion?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that finance director and or the first selectman on behalf of the finance department contact the town's labor attorney for the purposes of obtaining a legal opinion for the Board of Finance. To specifically ask the questions, one, what is the Board of Finance's legal authority in dealing with matters of payment or non-payment with elected officials? And if anyone has another, or number two or number three like
I was
that
gonna
on
say number
there.
one sounded good, because depending on what that opinion is,
Okay, but then I'll
I'll
close,
second
we
it.
just questioned and that one.
I'll second it.
all right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Any other public forum before I move on to item 3? Hearing none. Item 3, approval of minutes, August 15th and August 17th, 15th being a regular meeting, 17th being a special meeting.
Motion to approve both sets.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Item 4A, new business. You're up, Eric.
All right, I included the financial reports for the current fiscal year, as well as fund balance analysis and reports for the donation fund. Revenues recorded date, we're at $13,131,346.33. That's 32.48% of budgeted revenues. No concerns at this point. So far, we're on track. No issues to date. Revenues for last fiscal year, it's looking like we're actually gonna finish about $24,000 over budget. And that's making up for the full 600,000, so that's good. Expenditures recorded to date, $6,653,745.40. 16.46% of budget expenditures. Still, the only line item overspent is the building repairs. No major concerns at this point. We have had some savings from open positions that haven't been filled yet. We have interviews coming up, so there is some savings there to cover the overage in the building repairs. For last fiscal year, it looks like for general government, we're gonna be around $233,000 under budget. So overall, it was a good year last year. As far as where I think we're gonna be at the end of this fiscal year for fund balance analysis, I'm looking at around 17.5% at this point, but again, it's still pretty early. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the audit. I let you guys know I had submitted everything that the auditors needed. I've been in conversations with the person leading the audit. They're out on audits now, but she's working in between to try and get everything finalized. I don't have a date that they're gonna have everything done, but it shouldn't be too long. I'm hoping by the end of the month, they'll pretty much have everything that they need. They have everything that they need. I'm hoping they'll have everything wrapped up. Because mostly audit, they completed a while ago. It's just a few open items that they're still doing a little bit of testing and things like that, but I'm hoping it'll be completed soon. I've also been working on stuff for this fiscal year audit, so we should be able to hopefully get them on that not too long after they finalize the other one. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions for Eric? Go ahead.
Two questions, I'm sorry. First one regarding the audit. We're on track. Do you guys feel like you're on track to meet the 12/31? Everything needs to be done by end of the year, because we talked last meeting about whether or not we're going to need to supplement personnel on either side or both to make sure that was good. Are we?
The report has been submitted to Eric, and we're going back and forth just to make sure that everything was posted to it. We have already begun the audit with the auditors.
Okay.
They started our student activities accounts. We've been working on our audit since August 29th, excuse me. September 1st, he submitted the 22. I reached out and let them know that I'm available if they have any questions after reviewing everything that he submitted. There are a couple items that we worked through that needed to be adjusted, and the auditors really lead that on how that gets done on our side.
Mr. Chairman, I just question, because you said you had been behind, in the next audit, or is
So I
it?
didn't say that. Eric has thought that we might be behind.
Okay. I just want to know if everything's caught up. Because you had talked about that we were behind on the last audit, so we were getting behind on the,
Yeah, they were still working
equalizing
on,
with you and the board.
yeah, they were still working on the monthly reports. We're gonna be getting together soon to go through each month.
Okay, so,
They have the monthly reports.
okay.
Just
You have a
one-
second question.
Just one final, yes. One of the vacancies, I believe, is for tax assessor.
That's a question I had.
Are we going to have a tax assessor in place before the October 1 grand list is due to be certified by the assessor? And if not, do we have a plan in place so that we're able to have whatever done legally need to be done?
We have interviews on Thursday.
Okay.
The grand list has to be certified by the end of January.
End of January, okay, so we have plenty of time, okay.
Any other questions for
So-
Eric?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So the audit that's due at the end of this year, we're gonna be able to get that to the auditors in time so we can file it with the state by December 31st, so we're not delinquent on this year's.
Yeah, I believe definitely we should be able to.
Okay.
I just have one question, Eric. So last meeting we met, you were still going through, I don't know how many line items, thousands, right? Was there anything substantially or materially glaring that you found that you couldn't reconcile?
No, I was able to get everything reconciled. It was just, I didn't have a lot of the adjustments given to me that I had discovered during the reconciliation.
So just to follow up on that question. So the fiscal year that ended June 30th of 2022 is completely reconciled and has been sent to the auditors. And now we're looking at the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, which at the last meeting, it sounded like both the Board of Ed and the town had been focusing on the prior year, so they weren't doing the reconciliations at, at the same pace that they normally would do. So is there a plan to catch up with the reconciliations of the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023? So
Yeah, now
we
that-
have that done.
Now that the last year is wrapped up, I've been working on getting all my stuff going up. That I've been kind of putting off and getting my stuff ready for the audit. And now that I'm in a good place, we're gonna start to get together and go month by month to
Okay,
make sure we're.
and that's where you are too. You're ready to go through the reconciliation communication process for all your months ending June 30th, 2023, or just a portion of them, or how do you stand there?
Right now, they have all of the months, as well as July and August of this year, the past 2 months.
And all of the months in that prior fiscal year has all of the adjustments, because it sounds like it's the adjustments that bogged everybody down so that they could balance.
Right.
So they have all the adjustments now and
That's what, when he and I get together, we'll work through to be sure that.
okay, great. So thank you for putting together that plan.
Scott?
Yeah, I have one more question, sorry. And as I want to ask this now that the two items, the terminology is like, it's gone. Two types of deficiencies that they can find in an audit, right? One is
Material weakness and significant deficiency.
Thank you. Do we have any concern that either one of those is gonna pop as a result of this audit, or perhaps the
I think we'll
timeliness?
probably have at least a significant deficiency.
Okay, and how does that affect us bond rating wise or other?
A significant deficiency isn't a big deal. Material weakness may have an effect. But I think because it's our first year, I'm hoping it'll just be a significant deficiency. And then that's why I'm focused on making sure we get this year in plenty of time to get it done before the end of the year.
Bond rating is probably the number one area where it would take a hit on something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on Eric's report? Hearing none. Item 4B, discussion of possible action on request from Senior Center Building Committee Chairman to purchase items for remaining outstanding issues. I believe we have it in our packet and it was emailed to us as well. Rob, you want to run us through it?
Last month, I gave you a quick synopsis of the items that we were looking to get a little bit more money for, just to complete the fund for the center. It was put together pretty quickly. I had made a mistake on the chairs, and there was a power actuator closure that we wanted to get in here, so I didn't ask for any action last month, just to give you a heads up, I'd be coming for you this month. The list in front of you has two columns. One is with a simple closure, $22,000 for that list. The other is a power actuated closer. That's the only difference in the two lists and the labor that's associated with installing those. Power actuator is a much more expensive closure. It'll hold the door open and allow a significant amount of time for elderly people to get through. There's wiring and press and push buttons and things that go along with that, so it's gonna be more labor intensive to install also. So those are the only differences between the two columns. We did get the chairs, the correct chairs put in here, that we didn't have last month. And the power actuators, it's what's making the difference between the 22 for the simple closers or the 34 for the power closers. Obviously, the power closers are a better solution. Realizing that they cost a little bit more money, whatever you choose to do or fine with, but we would.
Could that be considered a safety item for the, when dealing with the elderly, you know, the difference between the two closures?
I would think so. Because again, it'll stay open longer, give them time to get through it, coming back in.
If you don't have the power closure, you open it and it will slowly open, but it also closes. And if it's those with a walker, and we have many with walkers, it's closing on them. It doesn't give them enough time to get through.
And it's also a button, it's not something they have to manually.
Okay.
Anyone have any other questions?
So none of this was already in the budget that we already passed to do this? We just keep getting
No, some-
money thrown at us.
Nope, this is the end of it. A couple of the items on there, one again is the silencers. That's something that we had to go in the front of the building after the fact because the system is too noisy and we need to do it in the back. Once that's done, that's done. The action, what I want. The enunciating, that was in the design also, that's in the basement. Oh, terrible place for it. Nobody thought that it needs to be up front. So these are things that were never accounted for.
If they have an extra silencer, maybe they could put one in here. We could barely hear it. I just had a question, because it said the reason for the power assist closures was because I guess the manual ones don't allow enough time. But this is the paperwork from the manual one, correct? The 7500 series? Because it says it can be adjusted up to 4 to 5 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes at 120-degree angle. I'm just wondering how much
The other
longer.
part of that is the actual operation of it.
If you have two hands on a walker and you have to move your walker over to open the door, it's easier to push a button, hold your
No,
walker
agreed,
and let the door open.
agreed. I'm just wondering, I was wondering if it was a time thing, because this 4 to 5 minutes seems like a really long time, especially in the middle of February for a door to be open.
It's inside, in baths.
Okay.
So what's the total dollar amount needed? We go with the
32
desired closure.
34, oh, just the closure or the total? Oh.
Yeah.
34,993 for the column for all the items.
And that's absolutely it. There's no more.
Other things are being acquired differently. Yes, that's correct. Under different things. So yeah, that's it.
This money would come out of the bond money that we received from the state.
Yes, yes. So right now, if we get all the reimbursement for the generator through USDA, I project we'll have about 750,000 remaining that would go back to the general fund, so it'll come out of that money.
But the bonds and the grants that we got, were supposed to decrease the amount that we were gonna bond for this project. You know, so it goes into a savings. We don't deduct it from the actual cost.
Now, this one, we've already bonded, done the final bond for it. So that remaining money will go back into the general fund.
And the USDA money has to be used for certain items.
Right,
And
yes.
these match what is approved
Yeah.
and eligible.
And the
So the simple-
USDA was, how much was that? That was
410,000
410. Okay.
or 411, something like that.
411.
When, do you know, we'll hear on that?
Have you heard when we're getting a generator?
Generator is supposed to be this month or next.
I heard October was the last I heard.
I have
So
not
once
heard
we
back-
get that and pay for it.
I haven't heard back from Todd. I could have called him earlier. But I don't know where he's at right now either, so I'll have an answer on the generator for next month's meeting.
So once we get that money, we'll close out the fund.
How much will go back into the general fund if the generator is approved?
Before accounting for any of this, I think it was around 750,000.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. Make a motion that we authorize the additional expenses as presented to us this evening by the Senior Center Building Committee in the amount of $34,919 to come from that $1.2 million bond money that we received from the state.
And these other
or
things?
the USDA.
No, this won't come from.
I'll second that.
These other requests for these, this Baker rack,
That's all included.
that's included in the 34,000.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Gail
Oh, sorry.
seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All right, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Well, see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 5A, old business update and discussion on bonding projects.
So water and
Who
sewer
has-
bids are
who's
due
got the best update for
for
us?
second. CIF grant, Dana had conversations with the committee today. Looks pretty favorable. We're trying to find out a few details, but I don't know if you wanna talk about anything.
Yeah, we should know on the 26th. They'll be meeting on the 26th and it's progressing really nicely. I think we'll probably be favored on this one.
So if we do get that, we should have enough to do all the water and sewer. We'll know October 2nd when the bids come in, what the final prices are. Go from there.
How many bidders?
I haven't received any yet, but
Okay.
we had a pre-bid meeting that wasn't mandatory and there were like 4 or 5 contractors there, so. So that's good.
And they do, you said October 2nd.
Dana, the update on East Main Street on this project over here?
Mid-October, I think, is when they're supposed to be here. They're supposed to be here in the fall. I've not heard anything
You said
differently.
September, I thought.
Yeah, it was September, then it's October, but I have not heard anything beyond that.
Is this like something that we're contracted with them or just
No,
they
they-
come and go when they please?
They own the property and they are working on laying the groundwork so they can do development. They're on another one of their projects in Mystic right now, which is why they haven't come back.
So it's their agenda.
Correct.
Anything else? All right, move on to 6, any other business? Hi, Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask, under any other business, that we ask the finance director to put an executive session on next month's agenda so that we can have that if we need it,
Sure.
for the purpose of discussing the draft policy for the registrars.
Do you need a motion?
And that's a motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any other business? Scott?
Sean, just out of curiosity, were you able to hire a teacher for that special ed position that we put the line item in? And if you did, do we have for student enrollment?
Sure, I can give you some highlights. Good evening, everybody. We were able to hire a teacher thanks to the Board of Finance. The funding was about $70,000.
There's a little bit to the story, and I'm happy to report more out at the next meeting, in this job market where teacher shortages and labor shortages are a real issue. We did have to hire at a higher step than we did last time, where we were able to hire at a lower step when we initiated this whole program. That being said, I'm happy to report there's about a net profit of $100,000 roughly, back out the salary of the teacher. And I'm happy to get into more specifics and answer any questions you have at the next meeting, or as much as I can answer right now.
Salary and benefits, we're still net profit of 100.
Yeah, like 99,000 and change. We still have the opportunity to accept more students, tuition students with that particular teacher in that particular position.
Excellent.
Thanks. I had a question on the alternative school. Any
Yes.
updates?
Sorry.
Any updates on the alternative school?
The alternative school is coming along nicely. It's still being grant funded. We're still using grant funds to cover all the costs. We're hoping to have the project finalized sometime in October and move the students in at some point in November. As of today, it's on schedule to be completed. West Green Lane, who is the clerk of the works for the field project, has been working with the construction company here.
In the field project,
Yes.
done?
I think there are a few minor outstanding items, but it is complete. I'm happy to say with these heavy rains, we've had some pictures and reports that is draining properly. It is being used. We had the grand celebration on September 8th.
Right.
When do we need to finalize bond and that sort of stuff for that?
As soon as the audit's done, because Standard & Poor's won't issue a bond rating with that still outstanding.
The audit for the,
FY22.
I had one other thing that this may have been discussed recently. If it was, I apologize. The church in Glasgow Village, where does that stand?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything on that in years.
I know. That's what kind of concerned me. Does the town own it or not?
I don't believe we do.
All right.
my understanding, Mr. Chairman, is that the reverter clause was a significant obstacle and essentially it would be almost impossible to reach all of the heirs of the original owners who donated the property to the church and have them sign off on eliminating the, limitations of usage.
Sounds like that's for the best, in my opinion.
And we certainly don't want to pay for that.
No. That's what I mean. Okay, any other business? Hearing none, item 7, public forum. Anyone wish to speak?
Just one question, Jennifer, about here. If you do have an executive session, could I be officially notified for that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyone else wishing to speak? No, hearing none.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded. Anyone want to discuss that? No, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. To get us on the. With summer, other holiday, we start pouring like $750,000 back in.
Do you mean increase it as a single purchase like we were around with the last?